Today in Burkina Faso, over 70 jihadists were neutralized in Kompienga. And as you can see in the video, the more those jihadists come, the more they are being KIA. So today we have Andre to share us his thoughts about this video. Andre, can you enlighten us more?
Thank you for having me. This was one of the operations that has been highly anticipated. This is not just the operation of Kompienga. You know, we've been talking about the Hanifa, the glorious Hanifa Forest battle that was about to ensue. Now, this operation has been in the making for more than a month, if I'm to be correct, from the last time we heard that the Ghost unit, together with the BIR-7 and the Force Attack team, were encircling them. Initially, it was the Ghost unit that entered the Hanifa Forest, but when they looked at the number of insurgents that were trapped in this Hanifa Forest, now, let's not forget, Hanifa Forest is a forest reserve in the part of Kompienga. Kompienga is a large forest reserve that was being used for agriculture. And if you look at the structure of Kompienga in the map, you can see that it's a very green surface, no houses around this place. So this is a place where the jihadists actually use. It's very, very close to Fada Ngoma. If you look at the north of Kompienga, you have Fada Ngoma. So they normally come from this forest and they disturb the people of Fada Ngoma. But ever since the Ghost unit walked in, the Fada Ngoma axis has been a very peaceful axis, you know. For the fact that the jihadists actually knew that they've been completely encircled in this Fada Ngoma, you know, there was no escape route. Actually, there was an escape route, but that escape route particularly was as if it was a trap that was set by the Burkinabean forces to obliterate the jihadists. Now, we have to understand that in today's operation, where over 70 were liberated, I mean, KIA, killed in action, in this particular operation, you know, we talk about, you know, we've been getting information for several weeks now that little by little, some of them have tried to escape and they've been obliterated by the Burkinabe, you know, elite assault brigade. So now what we have today is a major, you know, decapitation assault that was charged at the jihadists when they were trying to make a very forceful retreat, you know. But when you are encircled, you are encircled. Initially, this used to be a stronghold, but the moment the Ghost team came in and the Force Attack came in and the BIR-7 came in, you know, these are three legendary brigade of the Burkinabe elite team. So it went for the JNIM, it went from being a plan to ambush Fada Ngoma into a complete encirclement, right? So and the kind of guys that encircle them are professionals. They know how to do their job. These guys are professionals. I mean, the formation was elite, and according to the information we have, you know, different ISR drones have been flying over this Hanifa Forest, you know, in the Kompienga Forest, you know. It has been flying all over. They know the movement of the jihadists. They know, you know, their logistical supply means have been cut out. So for several weeks, a lot of them have been starving. For some of them that, you know, had been on treatment in this same Hanifa Forest, that have actually been on treatment and all of that, you know, they couldn't even get medical supplies because they've been, all the logistics supply to this part have been completely cut out. And towards the outside, you know, these people can actually make a desperate call, and maybe some JNIM would try to ambush while the rest escape and all of that. Burkina Faso has this part of, you know, Fada Ngoma, you know, the Kompienga. They have it completely encircled. If you're coming from the outside, you face serious assault. If you're coming from inside, serious assault. So now in this operation, 70 in the exchange, because they actually spent some bullets, right? So 70, over 70, you know, and counted because of search operation to find more bodies is still on. And there were more than 70 that attempted this escape. So when we talk about the complete encirclement of Hanifa Forest, a lot of people did not understand how many jihadists were trapped in there. You know, we're talking about an operation where 70 KIA, and over another 20 were suffering, they suffered bullet wounds. Now, in this case, we don't know if they will be coming back, right? So the fatality is higher than 70, right? So the ones that got wounded, they are not coming back next week, they are not coming back tomorrow, they are not coming back next month. So that is a whole unit with experience, because Father Ngoma used to be one of the most kinetic parts of the eastern theater of Burkina Faso in the southeastern part. Now that these ones have been obliterated, the thing is, you've taken out experience, you've taken out maturity, you've taken out capabilities from the JNIM. To me, this encirclement is like a decapitation assault on the JNIM most experienced combat capability, because we used to know that the JNIM used to be a very, very effective fighting force earlier, before Captain Ibrahim Traore took over. Then after they took over, gradually we started seeing men turn to boys. Most of the defeat they've taken, everybody realized that the bodies we see most of the time are body of kids, in their 17s, in their 20s. Most of these guys are teenagers. And the reason is because the more experienced jihadists have actually been neutralized in several operations that have actually happened in this region. So how do you replace them? How do you bring back the experience? Some of those guys, the JNIM is an Al-Qaeda group. In Mali, some of them, we've actually seen people that actually, they were active in the 9/11 operation. These are some of the imperial, I don't know, whichever people were funding this jihadists, they actually planned it well. But Mali, Burkina Faso, let's just say the AES became, a sort of cemetery for those guys. And today's operation, how do they account for those bodies? How do they account for the ones that have been injured? There is a possibility that, the 20% that got injured, they would completely be forgotten in that forest. And I love what Burkina Faso is doing right now. They don't want to force it. This is their land. The battle is existential. It's for sovereignty. This is an attritional battle, and in an attritional battle, you don't cover kilometers. You don't cover miles in a day. You cover, let's say, 100-meter. But that 100-meter, you have been able to ensure that there is a complete obliteration of every extremist, capability to push any type of threat, or to pose any type of threat to that settlement again. So when you hear that Burkina Faso have liberated so territory, they've completely been able to eradicate every type of threat in that territory. And such is the one we're seeing in Hanifa Forest today. For the sake of this video, we've actually left the video on the Telegram channel. It's actually very, very sad seeing. And it is just what it is.
And in this war of attrition, how long do they have to fight? Burkina Faso seems to be dictating the terms on this escalation. And I think, what's the end goal of this operation? Andre, please, can you tell us more?
The end goal of this conflict is that the Burkinabes, I don't even think defeating the JNIM is the main thing. I think primarily the JNIM is just the rehearsal for the Burkinabe fighting force. Captain Ibrahim Traore, if you look at his mindset, knowing that sovereignty is equivalent to your military capability. I think this is the training for Burkina Faso. They are gaining the necessary military experience to be able to avert the bigger threats. And you all know who the bigger threat is. The plan for the AES. The AES existence is like an existential threat to the hegemony, to the unipolar world, to the unipolarity in Africa. ECOWAS and African Union, they were organizations that were built to make Africa align. And the structural buildup of Africa is that Africa should remain poor, the continent that supply the cheap raw material for the European prosperity, for the unipolar prosperity. And AES stand against every of these principles, every of these core values, that Africa must remain a poverty-stricken continent, where the best African products we have to travel out of the country to go and make a living. That is why a lot of people don't understand why they open this thing they call asylum, where now the second tool in the toolbox to make this unipolar plan to make it come to pass is to bring in terrorism. Terrorism is the second phase of it. Who knows what the third phase is? Now you have the people of Sudan. Where do you think the people of Sudan are going to start moving to? They're going to start running. And before you know it, they're going to open asylum for the people of Sudan. Who knows where? Maybe in the Caribbean or somewhere else, just to displace the people of Africa from their own continent, and Burkina Faso know what the plan is, and that is why they continue to harm and reharm. So if you see Burkina Faso, building up in terms of the VDP, in terms of the BIR, the gendarmes, the paratroopers, the elite assault brigade, the force attack team, they continue to expound, and don't worry about it. It is because it is necessary. And any African country that is not planning in this direction, you might have to think again. Most especially if you are a country that you say you are neutral, you don't pick a side. When you don't pick a side in this existential war, you stand to be used. You stand to face what they call a regime change operation, a color revolution, where the unipolar world will put in someone that represents their interests. This is an existential fight, right? So, for me, the aim of Burkina Faso is to demilitarize the enemy, to reduce the enemy capability, to constantly launch a decapitation strike assault on the enemy capability, so that the enemy doesn't stand a chance to launch a counter-offensive, to launch a second strike. Do you know what I'm saying? So, and as we can see, that the more the battle goes on, the more this fighting continues, the more you see that the JNIM capability just continues to diminish. We were seeing people that have fought so many battles early on when this war started, but now you are saying, because one question that everybody continue to ask is that, who are these people? Where are they recruiting them from? Forget the funding at this point. Funding would not help you when it's a battle of attrition. Your mindset, what you believe in, will help you. The importance of the war will help you. So the JNIM, they're just recruiting some bunch of people that are brainwashed. They don't even know why they are fighting. Allahu Akbar is just a rhetoric. Whoever believes this is an Islamic agenda, you are lying to yourself. This has nothing to do with Islam, right? Islam is a target in this operation because, does the unipolar world, do they like Islam? No, they don't like Islam. So everything you see the JNIM display is what the people that are funding them want them to stay in. If you see them attack the Sahel, they want you to see the Sahel as a bad place because the Sahel resources is important to their own existence. So you must understand the war and why the fight from Burkina Faso is so important and is so beautiful is that the people of Burkina Faso now understand why they need to fight. That is why you have the volunteers. You have over 90,000 people volunteering that, look, we want to join this fight. That shows you that this is a people that are no longer brainwashed. This is a people that have jet themselves out of oppression. They've jet themselves out of this lock. Burkina Faso is out of the chokehold because Captain Ibrahim Traore don't need to struggle to enlighten the civilians again. The civilians know why they are fighting. Knowing why you are in the fight is as important as fighting itself. Not everything is kinetic. Some things are mental. The mental aspect is what Nigeria don't have. Burkina Faso have always had that mental, direction to where they are going. Even during the time of Sankara. These are people that embrace sovereignty and they know the true value of sovereignty. Right? So the Hanifa contest is almost over. For everybody that's no, the Hanifa Forest is almost over. Because the enemy capability has been broken down.
Do they still have what it takes? The logistics supply have been cut out. The medical supply have been cut out. So are you ready to surrender, or are you ready to continue to get demilitarized? So they are almost left to no choice right now. And Burkina Faso, this is, you can see that this is the Apaga next to Father Ngoma. You know, so the end goal for Burkina Faso is to demilitarize the enemy, to break the enemy down, and to make sure every part of Burkina Faso is well fortified militarily. So Burkina Faso knows what's up. In my opinion, this is not the main threat. You know, how would the funding get in if Burkina Faso successfully have heavy military presence in every part of its territory? So this shows you that the Burkinabe intelligence, the reconnaissance, you know, of Burkina Faso, the surveillance of Burkina Faso is just at a whole another imperial level. And in this fight, it is equally very, very essential to understand who is backing who, right? When the West backs you, you cannot sustain the fight. Just like it's going on in Russia and Ukraine. They continue to lie about what is happening on the line of contact. There you have the result of Kompienga, right? You have the result of what you have in you know, in Pokrovsk. You have what you have in Minorat. If Minorat falls, Pokrovsk falls. If Pokrovsk falls, Minorat falls. Now you have an encirclement of over 50,000 troops. NATO troops, right? Because the narrative, they are always about the narrative. Look at Bakhmut. Look at the Kursk. Glorious invasion. But we have to understand Burkina Faso knows where they are going. This war is existential. They have the capability to finish off the fight. The citizens of Burkina Faso are contributing to the fight. In diaspora, they are getting support because they know the importance of destroying the enemy completely down to their roots, where the enemy no longer have the capability to fight. And this is where we come in. That is the information part of the warfare, because the warfare has so many facets to it. That is where Android 72 comes into the game, because we are countering the information offensive. So ladies and gentlemen, this is where Android community comes in. So thank you for having me once again.
Thanks for watching, guys, and if you like the video, kindly do click the like, share and subscribe.